Yes.
Yes.
You nearly didn't become a doctor, you were a bit of a film star.
Yes.
At what age did you become a child film star?
It was 17. Yes. When I was 17, I was in the sixth form, and there were auditions for a new programme that they wanted to do for young people. Now you have to consider that S4C was only a few years old at this time, and there'd been very few programmes for young people. All the programmes had been aimed for more of a general audience, really, to pull in viewers. And there had been a few, kids programmes, but they wanted to do a sort of soap, sort of a Grange Hill, if you like, for young people. And the book had been written by Penry Jones called Jabbass, and they were going to sort of turn the book into a TV series. And there were auditions, and I got the part of the village idiot, the thick one, with no brain, who loved horses, who left school at 15 to work in a horse stables. And I still hate horses to this day. And, I was Jabbass's best mate, basically. And over a period of a few years, we did 2 series and a film. And it does change your life. You might think, well, in what way? You can sometimes say, it was only a small thing, but in Wales it was very big at the time. And we didn't realise that to begin with it, because it was filmed locally and we stayed locally. People saw us and we had a bit of a fun in school. But the first series had gone out and it was a success. Young people across Wales loved it. And, it was shown for many, many years afterwards. And we were invited to the Eisteddfod, as people do. And we went, drove my car in, we arrived in the Eisteddfod. And within 5 minutes, they had to have police and security to rescue us from the crowds. And we had to be taken to the S4C tent, where security had to be stepped up to protect us, because people were banging on the doors wanting to meet us. And Eisteddfods weren't the same for quite a few years. So that was Jabbass 1, which was done when I was 17, when I was between 6.1 and 6.2, when it was done during the summer. So I missed some school. And then Jabbass 2 came. Now, Jabbass 2 has only been shown the once, they didn't repeat it. Although that had a lot more money and a lot more stuntsmen. That had proper stuntsmen. One of the stuntsmen there was a chap by the name of Tipping, who was unfortunately killed. He was a very famous stuntsman. He was killed doing 999 lifesavers. He was repeating a stunt where somebody jumped out of a plane and the parachute didn't open. And he was doing that, and his parachute was supposed, but his parachute didn't open either, and he was unfortunately killed. But the stuntsman for me, they had just done Raiders of the Lost Ark, and had just been Harrison Ford second, and then he was second to me, so that's my claim to fame, really. And also at that time, I met up with Bryn Fon, and Bryn Fon at that time was the baddie in Jabbass 2. And at that time, he'd just started his new band, and he'd had 1 gig at that time. But he was very worried because he wanted female backing singers. And 2 other actors in Jabbass were Larry Vaughan, which was Ruth, who was Pixie's girlfriend, who he eloped with on a donkey. But that's another story. I can even tell people that I've eloped with a donkey down Llanbedrog Beach and ate some dry sandwiches. But and he found they had wonderful voices, and of course Laurie and Larry have been a part of Sobyn Asmeidiad for the last 20 years, and that's how they met. It was through Jabbass that Bryn Fon found them and had them a part of his band. Now Bryn Fon has been singing for 20 years with Sobyn and Bryn Fon, our band, and everything else, and I thought of what song shall I choose, really. And there is one song which is translated from Gaelic, and it's called Tyddyn y Gaseg, and it's not a rock one, it's a nice quiet one, so I'll play the song and then I'll tell you a little bit more about it afterwards.
Tyddyn y gaseg 1870 fy anwyl fab bynnaf Sean Glyn. Mr Jones y gwenidog yn garedig yn ddeiriog sy'n sgwennu y geiriau fan hyn. Erbyn hyn mae dy frodyr I gyd wedi gadael am Loegar I chwilio am waith. Mae'r tyddyn yn unig ath fam yn hiraethyn os weithiau'n dawel y maith. Ond mae buddig dy chwaer di a Jack tyddyn isa yn sôn am briodyn yr haf. Tybed a fedri di ddod graw i'r brodas I fydda dy weld ti mor braf. Tyddyn y gaseg 1880 fy anwyl fab hynaf Sean bach. Cyfarchion gymar ag i'r 4 blentyn gobeithio y tyfan iach. Mae Robin dy frawd mewn ychydig o helynt yn byrbwyd llafiodd orioed. Mae'r gaeaf yn galed, y man yw chaled a Chicago mor bell ac erioed. Ac mae Jack tyddyn isa a buddig yn hapus a plant yn iach ac yn gryd. Mae'r hynna yn crogian yn crwydro I bob man, maen nhw'n dweud fod o'n debyg I ti. Tyddyn y gaseg 1890 fy anwyl Robin a Glyn. Drw calon genydd i'w torri yn newydd o'r eich anwyl fan wedi mynd. Daeth eich brodyr a buddig a Jack tyddyn isa i'w chladdu yn mynwent y llan. Mae pawb yn garedig, Jack yn enwedig, ond hogia fi'n colli'ch man. Mae dda gen I glwad fod Robin yn dychwel o'r arian fe all brynu tir. A titha Sean Glyn ar ôl amser fel hyn, efalla doedd eitha cynir.
I think this song it's about a family where the son has moved from his home country to Chicago, and it's all about the letters that the father is sending to the son to tell him what is going on. And basically it's the reverend that's writing the letters telling him this is what's happening in life. And so the first verse goes about, you know, this is where your brothers are. The second letter is, well, you know, we've had kids, your sister's had kids and everything's fine. The fourth letter, his mum has died, you know, will you come home please? Your brother's come home from England now and he's bought a farm next door and everything's a little bit better, why don't you come home? And then of course the last verse is everybody's died and of course his son has never come home and has settled in Chicago. But through it all, you don't hear anything about what's happened to him. So obviously not many letters were coming the other way. It was all, I think it's a very sad song of how life was in the 1800s. You know, Bryn Fon has played a big role in our lives because he's Rhiann's favourite artist. And I remember having to drag Rhiann to the first gig in 1988 to Theatre Gwynedd. And she didn't want, I don't want to listen to this Bryn Fon, it's a waste of time. And it was only his second gig. And after hearing him then, well, I can't keep it away. Wherever he's singing, I have to take her, really. So it is very, very important.